Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a whole lot today, just a couple of updates. Life for us at EPD and me in particular, but frankly for other divisions within DNR and other state agencies is while everything else is required of us, we have this big Supreme Court case on water going on. Where we are in the litigation, Georgia has answered the complaint by Florida, and we are in full throes of discovery. This is, as an original action, different than you think of normally, as I've said before, on a Supreme Court appeal of some kind. This is an original action, meaning we're taking in all that evidence, all that discovery, and on a very brisk schedule with the special master. So that's occupying, again, EPD heavily, but also a lot of other state agencies, a lot of other regional entities and counties and cities. They're all being subpoenaed for relevant records as we speak. We have our first production of documents due to each side February the 11th, 30 days after we answered, and we kind of have a rolling schedule to produce all the documents within another totally by kind of around tax day, 120-day window. So it's a very aggressive schedule. From there will flow all your depositions and fact witnesses in the summer, and then expert disclosures and those kind of depositions, and all culminating at the end of by this time next year would be when summary judgment motions by both sides will be filed. So it's just going to be it's just part of what we're going to be doing together. So we have a good team, both external and internal, to work on this. It'll be a lot of what we're dealing with. So we're a little grace if we owe you a call back on something, but it's serious, but we're I think in good position. A couple other things that I mentioned about the governor's budget that impact EPD in particular. One is our Safe Dams program, and this is going to, you might hear, some of you might end up with the whole Safe Dams program and the role that EPD has in the inspection of dams to determine whether they are Category 1 dams or not, and if they're Category 1, they fall under our regulatory responsibility. Category 1 being if there's a failure, will it risk human health, will it risk life, flood a dwelling? And we have, during the budget cuts and we got very lean in the Safe Dams program. So Jack and Mary have really been working heavily on Safe Dams sustainability program for how we really can work on the backlog of inspections and then work with these Category 1 dam owners to get things up to snuff, and that's tough. Some of those facilities are owned by local governments, and we're in conversation with them. Some of them are owned by private individuals, and oftentimes this is a very kind of, this is one of my issues that we deal with. Is not always fun when you notify somebody that owns a facility that there was, unbeknownst to them and certainly not of their doing, a dwelling was allowed to be constructed in the floodplain below them, and all of a sudden you get to inform them that there are significant expenditures required to upgrade the dam, and so you run into some very tricky and hard and difficult private property rights discussions. One of the helpful things is is to make sure we don't make the problem more challenging. So we're trying to work with local government so that, on the zoning side and on the building permit side, we're not letting folks build where we create these, where we don't have to. The legislature has known about this for years and has tried to require some notice provisions and things on the deed side, but it's still happens often. The governor did give us money in the budget for 5 positions, and that's really why we really need to, internally within EPD, we've got a backlog, and frankly, as we deal with the backlog of overall inspections, we're going to create another backlog of Category 1s as we get to what we should be getting to on the category, the other dams, the general inspections. Several of them are gonna pop up over here and need to be reclassified, and then a whole nother bundle of work comes. So it's, again, I have talked to some of you, because some of you have had these issues pop up in your district. So I just want you to know that it's out there, and the more we work on really the sustainability plan and work with local governments and everybody on what needs to be done, these issues are gonna pop up. The other thing I note in the governor's budget that does implicate EPD to some degree is the treatment of the Georgia Soil and Water Conservation Commission. The governor's budget proposed that basically the commission be broken up of sorts of different functions placed in different places. That is due in part to a long-term thing that related to the process of looking at soil and water from a zero-based budgeting standpoint that goes back a number of years. So that conversation has been going. There have been some other things related to some of soil and water's work around the Green Book and some other functions that have not gone smoothly. So there's some House interest in this, particularly in the Georgia House of Representatives. So I don't know, and I think I talked to OPB in the governor's office about what was in the budget, and that proposed for certain functions to go to different places between ag and between DPD and other places. And I think the governor's position is we can still talk about all that, and that's in the legislative process right now. So I would just say that's something that I don't know where that will land, whether it indeed would be an agency that is indeed sort of broken up, or whether they'll stay together with some changes. And so that's just again, that may very well be something that pops up in your world as people think about what functions of soil and water, even if it stays as its own entity, should go where. And DNR and EPD are going to be in that discussion. The last thing I would sort of note off of the budget is not only passing the budget is we continue to kind of tell everybody this ozone new National Ambient Air Quality Standard is out there for promulgation by EPA, and how big a deal that is. We've been sort of working with the chambers and I think others to pass out sort of fact sheets on this ACCG and GMA as well. Just sort of letting everybody know that the way that Clean Air Act works, you look at these health standards by pollutant supposed to do it I think every 5 years. It's not always that proficient, but we have an 08 standard of 75 parts per billion, right, Keith? And so the next move looks like the science committee has sort of looked at all the health data and recommended that they move again to 65 to 70 parts per billion. I've been talking about that. Obviously, it will be the set of challenges to continue to meet that standard if it's 70 or different than if it's 65. 65 is pretty stout, and we're getting down pretty low. Again, everything we talk about with attainment on ozone, and as we continue to work and really feel good about getting towards our 08 standard, the goalposts are moving, and it's just a matter of how much. And so we continue to try to articulate that that's happening. And obviously, if the lower the standard, the more areas will be in non-attainment across the country, not just in Georgia. So it's just something to watch. Obviously, we are commenting on that rulemaking related to what level that should be. So are other groups. And the economic impact of that is certainly something to watch. But any questions on any of that?
Judd, when you're looking at an existing dam and you're trying to mitigate the risk, you're looking at the spillway as well as the foundation of the dam. So
I think that it's all of the above. I mean, pine trees growing in the dam are a big deal, so it's the earthen structure plus the mechanics of more folks to help do work on that backlog. And we have had some dam failures that were not category 1 that are the most recent one that people know about for you Lake Lanier folks would be that Lake Alice Dam failure that was a kind of co-owned dam with the city had come in and a family up there, and it put a lot of silt into, it washed out a road, put a lot of silt into Lanier. We're in a consent order situation, and it's the co-ownership of the facility has caused lots of problems, and we're trying to deal with it, and we're in an enforcement posture there. So believe me, it is no good if these things fail, even if they're not category 1s. A lot of the, above the fall line, we've got a lot of these NRCS dams, which were flood control structures, and they really have caused a lot of silt over the years, and that's another function of soil and water. Soil and water owns a number of those facilities, and they're always in the legislature trying to get some resources to work on their dams. So it's not just us looking down from on high telling everybody else what to do. We're also kind of telling the state itself on what it owns. And of course, Mark, in parks we own some facilities, and we have to work with those guys. DMGDOT owns a bunch because many roads go across dams, and so it's a big deal, and so I'm kind of just sounding the alarm. We're on it, and we're going to have to stay on it for a long time. I mean, this is not going to be one of those things where you work on it for a year or two. Whew, we're done. It's going to be constantly with us.
So is there any published guidelines that determines if it goes inside the flood zone below how many miles below a certain dam, it impacts if this dam breaks?
No guidelines, because it's all site specific, right? I mean, the more steep the riverbed is, the farther that water on a breach is going to go. The flatter the floodplain, the more it's going to spread out on a breach, which means it's less distance to the house. So there may be broad guidelines.
I think it's very site specific.
I think it's very site specific, though.
What we need to do is, when the development downstream is happening, some notification of the dam owner and by the county, so that can be worked into, that can be modeled at that time. So that any impacts, any upgrades to the dam can be sort of factored into that development cost at that time. So the dam owner doesn't end up burying it late in the game.
So the development cost downstream could be designed so that they have to upgrade the dam upstream. Is that what you just said?
I think at the end of the day, it is when that development downstream is happening that we need to consider any costs that are upstream for that upstream property owner. Because we will end up having to enforce on that upstream property owner, and which would cause them to have to incur some costs to upgrade their facility, their structure, based on that downstream development. So we need to have that any communication or transaction needs to happen associated with that upgrade needs to probably be considered at the time of the zoning.
I mean, the main thing is if the zoning process considers what it's stepping into, there's going to be a natural flow of discussion in the zone. The problem is when nobody even knows that that is a factor, and it flies through the zoning process, the homes get built. I mean, we have seen over the years upstream owners do a number of kind of unfortunate things. They're making a financial decision. Some have done a controlled breach and just drained their facility because that was cheaper and better than doing the upgrades. Since they have gone and purchased the facility, the residences downstream because that was cheaper than and neither one of those to the private property owner that is upstream. That's where the Magna Carta gets read to me on the phone and stuff like that. I mean, it's people get very frustrated with us, but so I think what you mean there, Mary, is just if that can be known and notified, that upstream owner's going to get involved in that zoning process, and maybe we're going to stay out of the floodplain is what's going to happen.
Do you look at siphon systems differently than A different grading system.
You know, that's probably too technical for me, but I can get Tom.
Yeah, because you correct when you put that in, it'll go through the core, but it pumps the water
Right.
rather than just flowing through the pipe.
We can get, look, and we can get this board to the extent you have interest in this whole area, we can make sure Tom and others provide a fact sheet or two to you on what we do.
Judge, my question was going to the point of, let's assume I own a dam upstream and somebody comes and puts in a development below me. If there's gonna be some additional costs from my dam to upgrade it, is he responsible for it or am I responsible for it?
You're responsible.
I'm responsible for
Yes.
putting it in the floodplain.
Yes.